Hello, I'm Mary V. Today let's talk about how to really loosen a tight shoulder and head and a tight left hand. So many people make the mistake of trying to loosen a tight shoulder and a tight left hand while they've got their violin up and they're playing, and they're trying to do it at the same time. But the great secret to really getting freedom for a tight shoulder and a tight left hand is to give your body a chance to feel what it's like to be free, rather than start tight and try to remember to loosen. It just doesn't work. So how do you do it? Well, the first thing to do is take off your shoulder rest and find your collarbone. And your collarbone is really the bone that goes across like that. Now you can see that's the angle of my collarbone, so that's going to be the angle that my violin sits at, right? So I'll put my violin on the collarbone, and of course with my shoulder rest normally it fits nicely so that my the space here is all filled in. But you're going to be holding your violin the whole time with your left hand, so hold it here as well and start to feel that the violin is just sitting in a place with the violin against your neck on the collarbone, and you're able to move the violin around, and you're also able to move your head around. Now what's important about that is that the violin sits using gravity on a little shelf, which is the collarbone. And like this, if you hold the violin with the left hand and the right hand, the body can feel what it's like to have the head free when you have the violin up. And it's also quite important to start moving the violin a little bit, because people get very, very rigid with their shoulder rest and their position, and everything stays still. Whereas in fact, it should be loose and able to move, okay? So make sure that you can swing your head up and down, side to side, and start to feel that collarbone shelf. So if you do that every day, before you do anything else, before you put your shoulder rest on, what you're doing is teaching your body to know what it feels like to be free. You know, the shoulder stays down. There's no need for the shoulder to go up at all, right? Everything is free. So the more that you can do that just for a short time before you do anything else, the more your body will learn what you're supposed to be feeling, right? And the only difference when you have a shoulder rest is that this space here is filled in so that the violin is there, right? But you can still move your head, and you can start to realize that the violin sits in this place because of gravity. It just sits there. Now let's go to the left hand, and people get very tight and they press far too hard on the fingerboard. Well, what I'd like you to do is to raise the violin up, right? So start raising the violin up like that. Now every time you put a finger down on the fingerboard, I'd like you to equalize the weight of it by putting the hand up. So it feels as if, rather than the finger is pressing down on the fingerboard, that the two parts of the hand are just equal like that. So it's like the finger goes down on the fingerboard, but the hand goes up to meet it, okay? So that's a way to start lightening the tightness. Now you've always got to be holding your violin, and you still don't have any shoulder rest, okay? So your head is free, and now every time you put your finger down, you're going to actually feel that you're lifting the violin so that it starts to be less down and it's more equal like this, okay? Like that. Right, and do that with all the fingers. And you have to think about this and really, really give yourself the feeling. So do it quite slowly, that you're actually equalizing the downward movement of the finger with an upward movement of the hand. So you feel you're actually holding the violin a little more. Now, apart from tight fingers and pressing too hard, actually that's starting to teach the left hand to do a bit more work in holding the violin. Because normally when we have a shoulder rest, we're clamped into it with our head and our shoulder. And the head and the shoulder do too much. But if we start getting our left hand to do more holding of the violin, then that's the correct way, because you're holding your violin between the head lightly and the hand lightly. It's shared. Okay? And you'll find with that movement up and down, and because your head allows the violin to go up and down, this exercise is much easier. You will discover that the shoulder has got nothing to do with any of these movements. The shoulder is out of it, right? And that's a way to teach the shoulder to stay down and not be part of anything, even when you're putting your fingers down, okay? Because you're equalizing it. So what you're doing is trying to teach yourself to have feelings and to know what it feels like for the left hand to be free to put fingers down without involving a tightness here and here in this clamp position. I have found this method of raising the left hand to counteract the pressing down on the fingerboard a very, very effective way to loosen off my students' tightness in the left hand. So give it a go. So when you teach your shoulder to stay down and that starts to free the left hand, then it's time to put your shoulder rest back on again. So we've got our shoulder rest back on in that position, right? And we just do exactly the same thing. The only difference is that the violin is higher up because of the shoulder rest. But the head is still free, it can still move around, and we still hold and we do the exercise again, where even though we've got a shoulder rest, we allow the violin to move a little bit, so that when we put our finger down, we think about equalizing between the downward movement, the thumb, and the hand coming up, right? So that's what to do if you're very, very tight. Then don't try to adjust what you do by remembering to loosen off. It just doesn't work. The best way is to give your body the experience of knowing how it feels to be free, and then very, very slowly your body will remember when you're actually doing the playing. So that's why you have to start with basics, because the body creates habits almost immediately. So if you do something for the first time and it's very uncomfortable, you do nothing about it. The second time it's familiar and you just carry on like that. And that is how easily habits are formed. So that's why we need a different way to look at things, because we need to change things and give ourselves different bodily experiences so that we can feel things differently, because we get sort of rather numb to it, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So I hope you get on well with your experiments, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Bye.